You know what? I was like, man, it's a 6 hour time difference. But I was like, I'm going to do this no matter what because I've been out talking to so many people. I've been literally helping people who are going through frickin' hell, just going through it, and helping them understand what I've gone through and what I've been able to overcome. And as a result of that, I'm witnessing change happen right before my very eyes, and people who never thought they could change. At a time when our world is going through cataclysmic changes collectively, this whole situation with COVID and everything that's happening has kind of forced everybody to recognize, whoa, wow, I'm not as free as I thought I was. And the reality is, okay, that freedom begins inside of us. And who am I? My name is Seth. I was born and raised in the woods of Maine. I was just this sweet, innocent little kid from the country who loved my life and everything was great. Then I started getting bullied really severely. Nobody did anything about it, and it just turned me into the biggest victim on the planet. I hated myself. I hated my life. I didn't understand why nobody was doing anything about it. And drugs were a way to cover it up. You know, I was like, well, since nobody else will help me out, at least these drugs will. And they did. They helped me tremendously for a little while until it was like, okay, this drug isn't enough. That drug isn't enough. None of them were enough. And things just kept spiraling downward and getting worse and worse. And it was one negative experience after another that just continued to spiral downwards as I watched my closest friends and family, people I loved dearly, die, overdose, just pass away. And then I found myself in prison. So I spent 3 years in prison after going through one traumatic life experience after another, after another, after another, after another. Big deal, right? Like we've all been through what we've been through. It doesn't matter whether somebody's been through less than what I have or more than what I have. What matters is that we all know the struggle. We've all been through whatever we have been through, and it is valid for each one of us. It matters so much what we went through. But nobody's ever going to help us realize that unless we start realizing that from within ourselves. And so what happened to me was, by the time I got to prison, all of those experiences that had started affecting me when I was a kid, basically getting bullied in junior high school, and all the things that I went through and sustained from that point forward, getting me to my life where I was at, where I was in prison, the government had taken everything that I had, like I lost my life savings, full financial collapse, full withdrawal, like just every nightmare happening all at the same time, and I had to deal with it inside of a prison. And I remember just feeling like the biggest victim on the planet and feeling like, oh my God, like how is this ever going to get better? It's not. I was so angry at our government for putting me in there. I was angry at my friend who I'd known for 15 years who had set me up to go to this place. I was literally blaming everybody and everything that there ever was in the entire world. And the feeling of going through all that was so severe and so intense that I just suddenly realized, wait a minute. So much shit is wrong. So many things are happening all at once. I had a fleeting moment where I was like, it's kind of a joke. You know, not in a joke like, ha, it's funny, but it's so many things all at once. And I'm taking it all and internalizing it and turning it into making it way worse than it actually is, right? And we all do that because something happens to us when we're young. It sets us off on a trajectory, and we don't realize that our body starts producing chemicals inside of it, stress hormones, that are actually the real thing we get addicted to. And so we keep living our lives, telling ourselves these stories, putting ourselves in situations that reflect the state of being we're most in. And if we're in a state of stress, and that's the most predominant feeling that we know, then we're going to keep creating situations, attracting the same people, places, things that cause our body to start creating those same stress hormones, because that's what we're most used to feeling. And so here I was in a place where suddenly all of it was so overwhelming and it seemed like a joke that I realized, I was like, wait a minute. What if this isn't as serious as I'm making it out to be? What if, okay, yeah, I'm in prison, I lost everything, my friend set me up, this, that. What if I could find a way to make peace with this situation? What if I could find a way to trust it and to somehow know that, even if I couldn't be consciously aware of it, that this was happening for reasons greater than I was able to perceive? And I just started contemplating that and wondering, like, okay, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But if it is true, and all this was happening for a greater reason that I just couldn't see because I was so stuck in a victim mentality where my body is producing all these stress hormones and they're actually what I'm addicted to, and the drugs and all the dysfunctional behavior was just covering up the real addiction, I asked myself, how would I have to be if I was to overcome all this? And I just really simply, I was like, well, first of all, I would have to embrace this place that I'm in. And my mind, all the mental chatter, I'm like, no freaking way. I'm not going to accept prison as a good place to be. But then I was like, wait a minute, like, what if I did? What if I really did? What would it feel like inside of me to do that? And I remember when I started thinking like that and contemplating what that potential could feel like, I could feel like a release inside of my body. I felt a few moments where I was like, man, like, I could feel what it was like to not be in a persistent state of stress. And I was like, ooh, that felt good. And I was like, okay, what would I have to do to keep feeling that little glimmer of hope, the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel? And it's like, well, I would have to keep revisiting the things that I was resisting or angry about or having beliefs about. I would have to keep revisiting those things and change the way I was perceiving it, because what was driving all those perceptions and those lower emotions were the hormones of stress. Like, that's what was really driving it. And so I just reverse engineered the process, and I started going back through my life, making peace with everybody, everything, every place, anything that ever caused an issue for me. I decided that I was going to think and feel greater than the effect that that had on my body. And I just kept doing that over and over and over. Now, yes, I was in a prison, so I didn't have a lot else to do, but I kept doing it no matter what. And you know what? In about a month of just doing that consistently all the time, no matter what, I started feeling so much better. I started feeling like, wow, like, yeah, this place sucks, but I didn't even care, because the feelings I was feeling inside of my body that I was generating because I was choosing to do it felt better than the influence that my environment had on me. And I realized that if I'm going to come out of feeling this good, it's going to be because I let somebody trigger me, or I let some authority figure scare me, or whatever. And I was like, you know what? they can do whatever they want. They can say, they can act, they can do whatever they want. But I'm going to choose to stay inside of this feeling that's inside of me. And I'm going to sustain it no matter what. And I literally made that commitment to the degree where I noticed, like, you know, when dudes would be fighting and yelling and trying to get me involved in it, or prison guards would be just slapping the wand of authority on me. In the beginning, I'd get triggered and I'd get upset and I'd feel all these victimized emotions. But then I stopped feeling that stuff. And I could see that they actually weren't aware. They were addicted to their own stress hormones. They were addicted to their stories, the narrative that they're telling themselves, that the world told them they are. And they believed that more than they believed their own potential inside of them, than their own connection to something greater. They believed those stories of the past more than their potential of the now and the future, and that's what they became addicted to. And the more I would continue to feel these feelings, the more I kept becoming aware of deeper and deeper layers of traumas, of beliefs, of behaviors, of actions, of things that I didn't even realize was in me because I had buried it so long ago. But each time these things would come up, I was able to perceive it from a greater place, from a place of feeling whole, coherent, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The idea of heart-brain coherence, which is essentially what I was doing and how anybody can do it. But the feeling that brought from me just practicing that and doing it over and over and over was so powerful and so profound that nothing could take me out of it unless I allowed it. And by that point, I had already had enough practice of doing this and creating this internal state that was so beautiful and so reminiscent of these states that I felt when I was a child. These child-esque like states when awe and wonder and imagination, all these things are ours. We look at the world with limitless potential until we get hurt. And then whatever it was that happened to each one of us that hurt us, that's when we start losing that awe and wonder and potential. And man, I'll tell you what, the more I was feeling all this stuff and becoming aware of those old things that I had buried from this state, from this greater observational state, each time they would come up from this new light of perception, the less effect they had on me. And the more whole and the more complete I felt, and I knew. I got to a point when, even though everything looked wrong around me, I knew that it wasn't. I knew that all of this was happening because there was something way greater than I was able to perceive while I was addicted to the hormones of stress that my body was creating. And that now that I was getting into a more orderly or more coherent, a less chaotic state and more cohesive with this miracle of life that I actually am, with this profound innate intelligence that's causing my heart to beat, that's causing all of these physiological reactions to take place in my body, that's literally causing bioelectricity, bioelectromagnetic forces to light up every time I have a thought and send these signals all through my body faster than the speed of light. I knew that just the very nature of my existence was way greater than all of the pain, suffering, trauma, drama, karma. I knew that whatever this innate intelligence was that was animating my body was something so powerful and so profound. And then it just made sense, common sense, because when you're feeling this and you're cultivating it and you're in alignment with it and you're just on course with whatever this is, even if you don't consciously understand what it is, that force works with you. It guides you. It helps you become aware of parts of yourself that you didn't even know you had the capability to become aware of. And then it's just like common sense. I'm like, wow, okay. There's this profound innate intelligence that is animating my body. And I can take what little bit of intelligence I have, which really actually isn't much, even though I sound like I know what I'm talking about. It's only because I experienced what I did and thought about it and experienced it so deeply, and I thought about it enough times that I was able to give words to the experience. But I knew that, okay, common sense, there's this energy that's causing my heart to beat. It's causing my lungs to breathe. It's causing thoughts to arise in my brain. And it's bioelectromagnetic in nature. It's some kind of electrical force that I don't consciously understand with my human personality. But I know it's happening because I'm not the one beating my heart. I'm not the one causing all this stuff to happen. There's something else causing it to happen. So I just kept taking what little bit of intelligence I had, and I kept bringing it to this heartbeat, to the energy that was in my body. And whenever I would get distracted, I would just gently remind myself to go right back to that and keep focusing on it. And like any habit that you practice, like going and working out and trying to build muscle in a gym or something like that, the same way that process happens, where you work out hard, then you rest, you put the right nutrition, which is like the right thoughts, and then you rest. You spend more time resting than you do actually working. You start to grow. Your muscles grow. And the same thing happens with our human perception. When you take a little bit of time every day to really work your muscles of perception and consider what is happening in your body, and really come to a place where you're good with that. You trust it, and you start forming a relationship with it, then that relationship starts to love you back. When you start to pay attention to whatever this miracle is that is causing your heart to beat, when you pay attention to it, it pays you back. Attention pays you back. And oh my God, here I am in this place, and I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, there's other places that I would rather be, but I didn't care. I loved this place because this place put me in a situation where I realized that I was in a mental and emotional prison long before I was physically incarcerated. And it was being in this place where life, the greater forces that exist, were getting my attention so that I could focus on something new, something different. And by golly, I was doing that. And it was showing me something that I never expected to see or feel or be aware of. And here's the beautiful thing about this is science, I didn't know this because I was in jail, I didn't know, but when I got out, I discovered that there's a name for these states of being that science has decided and figured out and said it's called heart-brain coherence. It's when you calm yourself down, you breathe rhythmically, just, even in breaths, even out breaths, and you choose to feel elevated emotions. You breathe through your heart, essentially. And you don't need anybody or anything to make you feel a certain way inside, because the world has taught us that we need something externally to make us feel a certain way internally. That's why we always think we need to make tons of money, we got to have this great relationship or whatever. We have to do all these external things to create an internal sensation. And I'm here discovering that just the opposite is true. Because I used to have all those things and I was never happy. I was never fulfilled. I never felt good. It was never frickin' enough. You know, I did tons of drugs. I did, tons of dysfunctional patterns and relationships and life situations. And I just kept doing them over and over and over. And it was never enough. I never felt whole. I never felt complete. I never felt satisfied. And here I am sitting in a place that by all outward appearances should bring me the least amount of satisfaction. But it was doing the opposite because I realized that I could create feelings inside of me because I was choosing to. I didn't need that money. I didn't need that relationship. I didn't need to be in any specific place. I could literally choose to feel feelings that were greater than I even had the possibility to imagine. And I just kept doing it over and over while I was breathing gently and just really calming down. And just like when we're kids, when we can imagine, our imagination, our creativity is running wild, that started coming back to me. And I was like, wow, I felt joy return into my life. I felt wholeness. I felt awe and wonder. And then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, now that I can imagine again and use my creative faculties to imagine what potential is, because I'm creating potential inside of my own body because I'm choosing to. I started thinking, can't I imagine what kind of future life I want to live? I mean, maybe it won't happen that way, but now instead of being stuck, addicted to the hormones of stress, which were keeping me in the past, reliving these emotional and mental patterns over and over and over and over, when I was in that state, believing all these stories that the world was telling me and that I was telling myself, I didn't have available energy to even think of a future. There was no future. There was only the past and my addiction to the past, and that's all there was. But now that I was in a calm, relaxed, gentle place, and I could feel good in my body, I actually loved my body because I realized it's not really mine. It's mine to take care of, but something greater was allowing me to be in it. And I began to have like mad reverence for it, mad respect, great appreciation that started turning more and more into a state of love. I truly started to love this energy and this body and everything that was happening because I knew it was greater than all of my own perceptual limitations from the past. And all of the drug addiction, all of the shooting, every drug you can imagine to the degree where I'd overdose all the time, all the trauma, everything that was created from me doing all that went away. And this completeness returned. And as I started thinking, like, well, if I'm going to create a future, I certainly don't want it to look like the past. How do I want it to look? And just like a sculptor, an artist, like sees a big piece of stone, a big piece of granite, but they can see something in it. I realize, and they just chip away at it bit by bit until all of a sudden this beautiful statue comes out of it. I realized that I actually had the ability to become the architect of my own life. And even though it was a theory to me at that point, I had developed so much internal coherence and love and wellness and elevated feelings, and I knew that I could make it a reality. I knew that it could become true. And in prison, I'm doing all this stuff, and all these men around me who also felt like the biggest victims on the planet, who had all been in there from broken homes and just tons of drama and trauma and karma and all these things. As I began feeling these feelings and getting into these states, I began noticing them around me changing. They didn't know what it was at first, but they were like, they would come up to me and they'd be like, yo, man, like, what's happening? And I'd be like, why? Like, and they'd be like, I don't know, I just feel different. And I'd be like, well, what do you feel like? They're like, I feel calm. I feel at peace. I like all the things I was feeling. And I was like, wow, oh my God. Like, by me doing all of this internal work and committing to it inside of myself, it was having an external effect on the people around me to the degree where they were feeling it. And that was all the proof that I needed to know that what I was doing internally was having an external effect. And if the people around me who were feeling just as much victimization and pain and suffering as I was, or 100 times worse, if it was making them feel like that, then I knew that whatever this force was that was in me, that was causing my heart to beat, that's also the same force that causes solar systems to exist, that causes galaxies to exist, that causes universes to exist, that from a microscopic level causes bacteria to exist. Whatever this force is that is managing all of this from the greatest level to the smallest, surely if it can manage all that, it can help me manage the details of my own life. And now that I was seeing that what I was doing was having an external effect, my internal work was having an external effect on the people around me, I was like, oh my God, this works. And this is worth committing to. And oh my God, did I do that. I just kept getting proof, one thing after another, showing me like, wow, I am the architect of my own life. I can make this however I want. And I found out that it wasn't happening the way I wanted it to. It was actually happening better than I wanted it to. And that was mind-blowing. It was heart-opening, but I try to figure out, because our minds want to rationalize everything and try to make sense of what we're feeling and experiencing. And I'd be like, why am I feeling like that? Why am I experiencing that? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, if I'm doing something internally and then imagining what kind of external effect I'd like to have, it can't come to me in a way that I would expect, because that would be me living in the past, accepting the known reality. And this had to come in a way that I least expected or didn't know, because I was attracting the unknown to me. And that's where the magic is by us trusting that whatever it is we are is greater than the influence that the people and the environment is having on us. And we can form a vision for how we want to create our lives, despite everybody and everything around us, despite all the suppression, oppression, repression, all the things that everybody and everything does to us, even if they don't mean to. If we can have a vision of how we would love our life to be and commit to the process of continuously envisioning what that life might look like if we keep doing it, oh my God, it will happen. And it will come in a way that you would least expect. It surprises you. It just opens your mind to new possibilities and new potentials, because it is the unknown. And you're forming a relationship with it. You are trusting its presence in your own being. And because you've created so much trust of its inner workings inside of you, you are then able to allow that trust to go outside of you. You trust your environment. You trust that the people and places and things around you are going to start reflecting back to you the state that you are most predominantly in. And if you're angry and you're pissed off and you're negative and you're a victim, of course that's what you're going to experience in your life. But when you are calm and you're at peace and you feel like your body is a home, it's a temple, it's a beautiful place for you to be, and you trust that, and you love yourself, and you find it within yourself to love others, and realize that all the doom and gloom that we're witnessing in the world all around us is really a very small part of what is actually happening. Okay, what's actually happening is this energy that's causing our heart to beat and that's also creating universes is really what's going on. That is more real than all of the suffering and all of the human perception that is happening in the world around us. But because we're so caught up in the addiction to the stress hormones that we feel in accordance to the story that we tell ourselves, according to the influence that the world has on us, we gave away our power as kids and we don't even realize it. We've just accepted that as normal. But when we reverse engineer that process, we reverse our world, when we start getting into the energy of our heart that is animating our being and trust it, all of what we lost returns to us. And we can start recreating our life in a vision and in a way that is reflective of these feelings that we feel inside of us. And that, my friends, is your God-given birthright. It's your natural given birthright. It's something that everybody and everything innately has within them, but that can only be activated, cultivated, and sustained by your choice to do it. Nobody is going to do for you what you need to do for yourself. And the only reason I say that is because I realized that about myself. I knew that what I had done internally was making me feel better than anybody and anything ever had before. And that it was this greater force, but that I was allowing it to. I was creating the internal environment, the internal conditions in my being for this to happen. And my God, it was happening. So I wanted to share this with you guys. And I want to tell you, more importantly than my story, which is just a story, is this same thing is in each one of you. And you can hear the things I said and be inspired by it and or not or whatever, like have any response you want to it. But whether you realize it or not right now, at some point in your life, you'll probably revisit this if you don't revisit it right away. Or if you're not already, maybe you already are revisiting this and considering it. But at some point, you're going to feel what I'm suggesting. And it is going to show you something in a way that you were never able to see it before. And when it does, you're going to say, you know what? I want more of that. The very same mechanisms that cause us to become addicts, that cause us to create habits, that cause us to construct a perceptual prison of our own making, are the very same mechanisms that allow us to be free from all that stuff. And I'm here as somebody who wants as many people as possible to become aware of this part of themselves, because I know that when they do that, they change their energy. And the more that each one of us change our energy to be in alignment with this coherence that is actually a natural state in every single one of us, the more we are in coherence with this greater force that causes all of this stuff to happen. You can, if you're religious, you can think of it in a religious standpoint. If you're not religious, you can think of it in a scientific standpoint. Both things point to the same possibility. They call it different things, it has different words, but they all say essentially the same thing. And you can trace all of it back to the same thing. But the point is, when you form a relationship with this energy inside of you, and you feel amazing, you return back to the state of being as a child, you liberate energy, you release the parts of yourself that were stuck and traumatized. you raise your energy. And the more you raise your energy, the more you feel this potential that is there and waiting for you, and it wants you to create. Each one of us are creators. And we can start with our own lives and keep creating from there and build greater and greater things in this world. And I never thought I would be here talking to you guys and to thousands and thousands of other people around the world about this. But it all started with me taking these simple steps and doing this thing internally. But it's not about me. I could care, like, it doesn't even matter. I don't matter. Take what I'm sharing with you and become aware of the part of yourself. If you feel this, maybe you don't feel it, but if you feel something inside of you that's like, you know what? There's something to what he's saying. Become aware of that part of yourself that feels in resonance to what I'm saying, and focus on that part of yourself. Develop it, expand it, really consider what is possible with it, and then rest. And then when you get some more energy, revisit it again. And I'll promise you this, but you don't have to take my word for it. If you do this, and do it just at least until you start seeing things around you change in a way that is evident of this work you're doing inside of you, get a hold of me and tell me if you don't want to keep doing this. Because I had every reason to not keep doing it. I still had years left in my sentence of prison. I was like, I'm not going to keep, I didn't want to feel empowered. Like, that was the last thing I thought I was going to feel or be. But I felt that. And it was so overwhelming in the most beautiful way that I wanted to continue to feel it. And it changed everything in me to the degree where it's like, how do I become the best version of myself? How would I have to be? And I began working. Once I could feel all this energy and I realized that the miracle of life was pulsing through me and it's pulsing through everybody, I got to decide how I wanted to, like that sculptor chipping away at a rock. I was deciding what kind of personality I wanted to have. And I knew that I wanted to be really loving to people. I knew that I wanted to help people become aware of the same or similar thing that I was feeling in me. And I wanted to create strong relationships with others. I wanted to help inspire people to see less separation in the world around them and feel more connection. And back then, I was just a guy sitting in a prison cell, and this was just all imagination. But I knew it was more, because every day in there, seeing the way everybody responded around me, and they began healing and having these experiences, and I began talking with them about it, and I saw the same thing in their eyes. These hardened criminals, they were once little kids who had that same glimmer of sight, of potential in their eyes that I had when I was a little kid. And they were returning back to that state of wholeness where nobody had hurt them. The world hadn't darkened them. It hadn't taken out that light that was inside of every single one of us. And they were changing right there with me as I was doing it. And oh my God, I'm still in touch with a lot of those people, and they've gone on to do beautiful things with their lives. I mean, guys who by all means shouldn't have done anything. Some of them had been in there for 20 years. Guys who just, their family members died when they're just terrible stories. These guys had every reason to be down on themselves and to feel like victims and to not do anything good with their lives. But they didn't make that choice. They felt the same thing that I was feeling. And they were like, you know what? I'm going to create a better life. I'm going to create a life where I am loving myself and sharing love with others. And they've done it. I've done it. And I'm witnessing things happening around me. I know, I want you guys to clap, but I want you guys to feel this, because when people become aware of this and they take responsibility for their internal state in the way that I'm saying, and they witness others change around them, and they witness opportunities come out of nowhere. The universe doesn't want you broke and penniless. Okay, it doesn't want you addicted and suffering and sick and going through all the things. It wants you to be whole. It wants you to have a relationship with it. And when you start doing that, it starts to provide for you. It starts to, like I said, if it can manage creating universes, it can surely help you manage the details of your life. And I'm witnessing this constantly in my own lives and in all the people's lives around me who I talk to and communicate with. And I believe that something greater is happening. And I believe that this whole pandemic that we're experiencing and all the conditions that are related to it are really this greater force of life, of energy, of everything that we truly are, that is presenting us with an opportunity where we can finally realize that we are the masters of our own destiny, that we are the ones that hold the key to our own freedom, and that our freedom is going to be contingent upon our choice to take steps in the direction that lead us to that freedom. And when we realize that we are that powerful and that we have this much capability to do this, and we start doing it, and the world starts showing us, hey, you're doing it and it's working, you want to keep doing it. So this world and all the things that are happening are literally a gift that, I know it's hard to see it, right? We don't see the gift when it looks as messy as it does. But if we can find the part of ourselves that trust that even though we don't know what it is and even though we can't perceive what it is, there's a part of us that knows or trusts or is aware somehow that it's something greater. And if we can connect to that, then that greatness is revealed to us in ways that we would never expect, but in ways that are very satisfying, very gratifying, very fulfilling, very loving. Sometimes it's so sweet. It's just so beautiful. And that's what makes you feel whole. That's what makes you feel value, you know? And when you feel that, then the things that matter in life are not the things that people taught us matter. It's not what society wants us to believe. It's the beat of our own heart. It's the beat of other human hearts around us. It's our ability to love ourselves and love each other and to share and communicate and talk and be friends and create connections and create vibrant communities. Because you know what? Most of us that live in this world actually want that for ourselves. We want this greater expression. And there's very few people that actually don't want that. And there's very few people that are actually oppressing us. Most of us want this goodness inside of our lives for ourselves and for each other. But the world is, nobody is ever going to do this for us. We have to be the ones that choose to do this for ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that you can do this if you want to. And you have me as a living example. And there's lots of others too. I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people that are doing the same thing. So I'm gonna open up question and answers if anybody wants to ask questions or anything like that. So let me know, because I want you guys to really understand everything that I shared with you, because I want you to embody it. Yes, you might have to come up if I can't hear you. Yes, can you come closer, brother, so I can hear you? Say it again. Yeah.
Meditation. Do you meditate?
Yes, you can call it meditation. See, it's called heart brain coherence. That's the actual state. It's like a meditation. It's really simple to do. And I can send you guys, and I don't remember Jason, whoever it was that put me in front of you guys. I can give information about this. I have a book that I wrote, but it's really simple. All it is breathing in and out rhythmically. Like breathe out 4 or 5 breaths, breathe in 4 or 5 breaths. Just keep breathing rhythmically while you're choosing to feel joy or love or some kind of feeling in your heart that you're choosing to feel for no reason at all. It could be a relationship you have that reminded you of love. It could be a child. It could be a pet. It could be your grandmother, your grandfather, whatever. It doesn't matter. In the beginning, something that reminds you of what it's like to feel love or some kind of feeling like that in your heart. And so when you breathe rhythmically like that and you feel that elevated emotion in your heart and you keep doing it, just keep doing it. Even if it's only 10 minutes a day, you do it for 10 minutes, then you go about and you live your life, but you do it every single day. And you just keep doing it. And eventually, you're doing it for 10 minutes a day. Then after the first month, you're like, oh my God, it's amazing what it's doing. And you do it for 20, 30, 40 or more minutes a day. And then you start living your life in a way where you're like, oh my God, you become aware of an internal order. You become aware of how your heartbeat is syncopated with your thoughts, how the organs of your body are in coherence with your heartbeat, and you can actually feel it just because you've focused on it so much. And that creates a state of wholeness that feels so good that you're like, I'm not going to come out of that. Because usually somebody will say something and it triggers us, or we hear something on the news or whatever, some external thing causes an internal state. Okay, and I'm going to give you a really crude example here, but I love it because people get it. So imagine everybody's probably had a sexual fantasy about somebody in their life, right? Like, yes, I'd say that's why I love saying this, because people get it. So you're having a sexual fantasy about someone. You're imagining what it's like to have sex with that person. You're getting right into it and you're imagining it. And we know what happens, right? Our thoughts create. Yes. Yes, Hachin. Go ahead. Yes, but our thoughts create a biological reaction. We know what happens in men, we know what happens in women. So if your thoughts and your imagination can create a physiological response in your body, then why are you just focused on your genitals? Focus that on your heart. That's what I did. So it's that simple.
I remember that you had said like what you would do in yourself would be like you have to reflect over the trauma. Can you hear me?
A little bit. Now it's not really clear, but go ahead.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, so I remember that what you were saying that you did was reflect on the trauma that you had as a childhood, and you would change your perception of that trauma so that you thought differently about it. Can you like explain or give me an example of like what it is that you were doing, like so that I could understand it a little better?
Yes, that's a great question. It's really, really important because what I was doing is I was resolving childhood trauma, but I was doing it because I created this state of heart brain coherence first, which is all it is, that simple breathing, and you're focusing on your heart while feeling good. And I just did that like a drug addict. Okay, I mean, sorry to be so crude, but I committed to that because it was the only thing that was making me feel good. And as a result of doing that, I returned to a state of wholeness where this energy in my heart was communicating with all the other organs in my body, and that made me feel so complete and so good that from that place, I wasn't stuck in my patterns of the past. I was in a state of freedom to imagine my future. And part of imagining my future, things would come up, memories of the past would just come up naturally that were from traumas of my past. So when I was in this state of internal balance that I'd created first, then I could look at those traumas from that perspective. And it was like I was shining a new light on them because I was in a more complete state than I had ever been in when all those things happened to me. And as a result of being in that, those things just dissolved. They didn't have the power over me that they used to have because I was elevated enough to be in a state that they couldn't affect me. I hope that makes sense.
Hi. So earlier you said that earlier
No, I can hear you.
you
I can
said
hear you loud
that
and clear.
you would see like the way people would react to like stuff, and you would think like, oh my goodness, they're not aware. But like, have you ever tried to like make people aware in the moment and like share this stuff with them, like maybe in the hopes of like enlightening them, and how?
So that's a fantastic question. And, I never really felt like, I know this, when I'm in this state and I'm around people, they're going to feel it or not. And as long as I'm in this state and not really caring how they are, because me being in this state is more important to my well-being, then people just start coming around being like, what is this? They feel it because, and here's the science or the physics behind it. When you are in a state of coherence, when your heart is sending, see, if you were to do a heart rate variability test, like if you were to have your heart rate monitored, you would see it's very jagged for most of us because we're in a stressed out state. Our body is producing stress hormones, and so we don't have a coherent heartbeat. But when you start breathing the way I was saying and feeling these elevated feelings of joy, your heartbeat will go from being jagged to smooth. It'll beat in these like a wave, these smooth waves. And when your heart's beating like that and you feel your body suddenly feels great because you're not in a state of stress. You're in a state of creativity. You're in a state of openness. You're in a state of wholeness and you feel good. And when you're in that state, you create, and there's an energy field in all of us anyway. It's always there, but that energy field is never coherent. It's never whole. It's never as whole as it has the potential to be. But when we get into coherence, like I've been telling you about, then suddenly our energy gets into a much more powerful state of being. And it becomes so powerful that we start generating energy inside of us that is whole, it's coherent, and it's reflective of these feelings that we're holding inside of us. And at this point, when we're feeling that, we love life, we love people, even if we're challenged or troubled by them, we keep coming back to this place because we're creating something inside of us that feels better than anything that anybody brings us from outside, and so we keep doing it. And that feeling creates an energy field in and around your body that is greater than most people's energy field because they're in a state of stress. And so when you're in that state and you're producing an energy field that is powerful and whole, they can't help but feel it because coherence entrains incoherence. So think about it like this. So I'll give you an example like of what coherence is. Okay, say there's a bunch of drummers on a stage playing music. Okay, and they're playing and they're just all out of rhythm with each other. and it sounds like a cacophony. It just sounds like hell. You're like, oh, I don't want to listen to that. But, and everybody in the audience is like, oh man, like, come on, I don't want to hear that. But then all of a sudden, they start playing in rhythm, and it starts sounding good. That's like the heart. Okay, it's like the heart and brain. And then all the people in the audience are like, oh, it's starting to sound good. Yeah, I like that. And then all of a sudden they start, patting their knees to it and getting right into it and getting in rhythm with it. And all those people in the audience are like the organs in your body. So suddenly, when your heart and all the organs of your body are in rhythm with themselves, and you're feeling what it feels like to be in that open, creative, good feeling space, you're creating an electromagnetic signature that is greater than most people you will encounter, because sadly, most people are living addicted to the hormones of stress because life is hard. Life is all these things that we're told it is, and we buy into it and we believe that to the degree that it takes us out of this natural state of being that we're all born with. So when you get, and I'm sorry, I know it's a long-winded explanation, but I want to give I want to try to help you guys understand this as much as possible. But when you have made a choice to get into these states and you start actually emitting the electromagnetic signature of these internal states, the people around you, they're either going to feel it and start wondering what it is, or they're just going to go away from you because they're not going to resonate at that frequency. It's amazing. And you will start attracting people into your life who resonate at a similar or like frequency to the one that you are putting out. And these people will come to you when you least expect it, in ways you can't even think of it, or opportunities or things, because as I said, the universe, or this greater coherent source energy that is creating all of this, wants us to be in alignment with us. And when we start to have a relationship with it, it starts to have a relationship with us, and it starts helping us manage the details of our lives in really amazing ways, in really beautiful ways, in really inspirational ways.
I got like two things. So I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking to us. I think I've also experienced some of these, experiences that you had. I could say maybe like 2 days ago. I kind of experienced a feeling of gratitude while I was, taking a break from work, right? And then I just saw the waves coming up. I thought the shore and then going back down. Yeah. And I kind of looked at it, and I was just kind of like grateful for where I came from and the things that I've done, and where I'm at now today, and how I've, experienced a lot of things and been through a lot of things too. So I think that you coming to speak to me, it was kind of a little bit of like a better understanding of what that kind of feeling is. It gives me a little bit of how and an explanation of how and why that feeling comes about. And another thing is, so how like you're saying you can practice these things and do it like 10 minutes a day, 5, whatever, how long it takes. Can you do it while smoking a cigarette? That's my
Absolutely.
question.
Absolutely. And
Because the way I think about it, right? The way I think about it, right? Because when you're smoking a cigarette, you're already giving yourself one of those good feelings, right? All right, you're trying to release some stress, right? And that's what a cigarette is for me. That right there helps me release some stress. It helps me break down. It helps me to calm myself down in a way, right?
yeah, yeah.
So as I'm smoking a cigarette, right, I could be able to tell myself these good things, right? That could be a part of my meditation as it is, right?
Yes. Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, think of it like this, because we want to. And here's the thing. Like somebody would say, "Oh, smoking cigarettes bad," or "Oh, I'm shaming myself," or "I feel guilty." And you know what? If you love yourself enough, if you trust yourself enough, and you make that internal state of being your priority, and you keep working to attain that, then even if you are doing something that you don't think is healthy or isn't helping you, the more you do this internal thing, the less you may need to do that, because the feeling that it's creating inside of you is greater than when I say it has the potential to be greater than anything you've ever felt, for me, I go to levels there aren't words for. I can't even explain it. It's just feelings of total bliss, ecstasy, just feeling like, oh my God, I am in a state of pure heaven in my own body because I have made so much peace with my body. And because I've made that such a predominant thing, but it didn't happen overnight. It was just something that I did, and it built up accumulatively, okay? You don't have to dive in and do this all at once. But because I did it, I just started being like, I had a few things, like, even after getting clean and everything, I'd still drink a lot of coffee or still do some things. I was like, well, it's helping me, but the more I got into these states, those things just went away on their own just because I didn't need it anymore. It didn't make me feel better than I was feeling inside. And I was feeling so good inside that it just was having no effect or a negative effect. And I was just like, man, I don't need that. So wherever you're at with it, don't beat yourself up. Like this isn't something where you're supposed to be perfect. Okay? Like I made so many, and I hope you guys get my book too. If you buy my book and read it, you'll see what I went through, which I wrote a book, by the way, that I never planned on putting out in the world. I wrote it when I first got to jail, just thinking like, oh my God, I gotta write my life story out because I need to look for patterns of where I went wrong. And sure enough, like by writing all this stuff out it's cathartic. I could get my problems out of me and write it on paper. And then suddenly it wasn't in me as much anymore. And so I wrote like this huge thing of just my problems, essentially, my life. I never planned on publishing it. I never planned on putting it out in the world. And I would even write it and be like looking over my shoulder just so other inmates didn't see it. I was like, it was that personal. It was like really a personal thing that I didn't want anybody to read. But somebody was like, let me read it, please, please. And all right, read it. I let somebody read it. And they're like, this is unbelievable. You have to put this out in the world. This will change lives. It will save lives. And I'm like, yeah, right. It's so personal. I can't do that. But sure enough, he told other people about it. They wanted to read it because everybody had plenty of time in there. And same thing, people just kept coming back like, you have to put this out in the world. And it took me a long time from when I wrote that book to actually put it out in the world because it's things that I would never want to tell to anybody. But by the time I published the book and put it out there, I had so greatly made peace with all of the things that I did and that are written in that book that I realized that by showing my own vulnerability to the world from this place of strength that I had created inside of me, I was giving other people permission to heal, to face the parts of themselves that I didn't want to face, and to offer an opportunity to break down social barriers, to break down social stigmas, and to reinvigorate the potential and possibility that we all know we feel and alive. We all know is possible. And so I did it. I was like, you know what? I feel totally ready for the world to read this. And I wrote it in a very objective way. Even though it's about my life, I wrote it objectively because I was observing my life. So people read it and they're like, wow, I relate to that. It's like my life too. So it's written in an objective tone. So it's about you, the reader, and us collectively as a species. And the book is, just like everybody said, it's changing lives, it's healing lives, it's doing all that. It's saving. I'm going to do an intervention tomorrow with one of my dear friends whose brother has gotten out of control, and we're going to get through to him, and he's, because he wants to change, but he just needs that. So I hope I answered your question, but essentially, you choose to make this a priority, and all the things that you might think are helping you, which they might be helping you at that time, you might find that you don't need them anymore. And if you don't find that, that's okay too, but don't beat yourself up, because the thing is, it's really about being gentle to yourself. And because you're being gentle, you're trusting this energy that is allowing you to have this life experience. And so you're cultivating an intimate relationship with it. I know those words might sound weird, but that's really what it's like. It's almost like you are creating the love affair you always wished you had. And it's one that is actually, because we get into relationships, hopefully to have something good happen, to have a good feedback, good reflection coming back to us. But often it doesn't happen because we end up showing each other our wounds and the things that we're holding on to, and it creates a lot of pain and suffering. But when you get into these states that I'm talking about, the opposite happens. You start attracting people who want to reflect back to you what you're feeling inside of you, and so your relationships start looking like this. No matter if it's a relationship with a loved one, like your lover, your wife, your husband, your mother, your father, your children, like, doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, people want to reflect back to you this when you have grounded this into your state of being unremittingly.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
So I have a question. Have you ever taken psychology?
No. No, I haven't.
Or like, what is your highest level of education? You sound really smart.
Well,
Like,
thank you.
what is it?
So I quit school when I was 15 and never went back. And I quit school and I went deep into the woods of Maine and struggled. I survived. I literally lived and tried to hunt and fish, and I suffered. I almost died. But I never went back to school. I never educated. And like I said, I didn't even have words for any of this stuff, except for that I experienced it so much, and what I was feeling was so real that I knew I had to explain it. I knew that I had to find the words to convey what it was, because if I did that, then I could help others become aware of the part of myself that was aware of this. And, writing out my book helped a lot, because writing it out, I was like, that was a big help in me forming the vocabulary and language and everything to do this. But it was really a labor of love. It was a passion play. It was something that, because I had done it, and it started literally like just me, like, wow, can I do this? It literally started with me just having an aha moment of like, maybe I can do this. It was like that. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to try. And just those few steps of trying and then testing it out and seeing, started getting results that were like, wow, okay, this is profound, it's working. And it just kept building from there to the degree where I started really loving this. I started really getting passionate about it. And when I saw how much it was helping everybody around me, that helped me to really get excited about it. And that's all it was. It's a self-study, I guess you could say. And honestly, like, just so you know, like, when I was in school and I did all my grade point average and everything, I got terrible grades. I did my IQ test. They were like, nah, you're not going to do anything much with your life. So they actually told me, So my level of intelligence as far as like studying and learning probably wasn't that great. But my passion for what I'm explaining to you was so great, and nobody taught me that. I had to learn that for myself by just testing this. and becoming aware of it, that I didn't care what anybody said to me or thought about me, or I got to a point where I was like, I don't give a F what anybody thinks about me, because I love my life. I love this connection that I feel. I love the way others respond to me as a result of me being in this state. And I know that if I can do it, they can do it. And if they can do it, the whole world has the potential to do it. And I truly believe that this whole thing happening with COVID and everything is a blessing in disguise. It's the opportunity for as many people as possible to begin to take responsibility for this internal state that is in all of us anyway, for managing their own personal energy instead of getting angry or getting caught up in the past to do the things that we're most used to doing. I'm saying try something different. I'm saying try something new by getting into a calm state, breathing, loving it, and watch how strong you become. Watch how aware you become. Watch your intelligence expand. Watch all these things, all the awe and wonder that you felt at some point in your life, most of us when we were children. Watch that return to you tenfold, hundredfold, thousandfold, because now you're an adult and you're turning on all those old neural networks that you shut down long ago because there's just been so much stress hormones flooding your body. You couldn't see it, you couldn't feel it. But now that they're turned back on, you're ready to create, you're ready to share, you're ready to open your heart, and you're ready to influence others in a way where they're going to do something similar, because that's what's going to make a better world for us, for our kids, and for all future generations. Thank you guys for listening to me. My name is Seth Leaf Przansky. If you ever want to buy my book, please do. You don't feel obligated, but if you want to, it's called The Fight To Enlighten, and it is a medicine story. The book is everything I talk to you. But it's more the stories of my life, so it's very entertaining. And it'll bring you into the deepest, darkest holes that I went into that I did not think there was any coming out of, and how I came out of it. So it's a medicine story. It's something that's very healing. And you can find it on Amazon, Amazon.com. The THE, The Fight To Enlighten is what it's called. Initiation through the heart is the only way to win. And if you want a signed copy, you can go to my website and get it. So, thank you guys. And I wish now that we've been in front of each other, I wish we had time. I want to know you guys better. I want to hear your struggles. I want to I know we're not going to do that right now, but that's how I feel. I want to know each of you. I want to know what holds you back. I want to know what gets you excited about life. And I want you to be inspired to focus on that and go out in the world and live it and do it and be the example. Because there's a world filled with people that don't know anything about any of this, and they feel lost and they're suffering, and they're creating the frequency of suffering that's making everybody else suffer. So one person can truly change so many lives. They say one person can change the world. I never ever used to believe that, but now I do. But I know certainly, I know one person can change thousands of lives. I know that right now because I know I've already done that. And I never thought I would do that. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Buy my book if you want. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And if you do, email me. Write back to me. All my contact information's in there. And tell me about your experiences. I would love to hear it. All right. Thank you guys. Till next time. Okay.
Yeah, I know how to get out of this.
I love you guys. I truly, truly love you guys. Yes. You literally are all in my heart now. I'm going to literally carry you in my heart. And I'm going to imagine each one of you imagining your life the way you want it to be. Okay? It's my prayer for you.